Alright folks, how's it going? I'm back. Hopefully this will be a proper video. Still unresolved on the whole laptop front. On the whole, they speak pretty good English in this place, but I think it's because I'm in kind of a smaller town. There's only a choice of 2 laptop places, and I couldn't communicate properly with them. They just kept saying, "Oh, it works," and I'm like, "Yes, I know it works." The problem is I'm unsure about the safety, and I don't know if it's my imagination. You know, the nuances of language were hard to put across. I couldn't get them just to like get inside there and test it and make sure it's safe and okay. I looked online, and I think possibly the shocks on the space bar were actually static in my body, getting grounded by the laptop, which was plugged in and has a ground going outside. I don't understand it all properly myself, and I think I know why. It's kind of cold here. I don't like having the room too hot, so I kind of put a blanket on myself. And the blanket I was using, I think, was very staticky. So I'm hoping it's just that, and the fact that I was grounding myself with static in my body is what gave me the shock. I don't understand why pressing the space bar should ground me anywhere, though, to be honest. I didn't think plastic conducted electricity, so the whole thing's a bit worrying and confusing. I'll be in a bigger city in a couple of months. But anyway, for now, I'm just using the laptop unplugged, and I haven't had any issues with it at all. I think possibly the tingling might have just been my imagination. I don't really feel it anymore, so hopefully I'll be okay. Anyway, you didn't need to know any of that, really. First of all, here's my disclaimer / how I've been doing recently. So for the week, I'm marginally behind Life Strategy 100, and a little bit ahead of Life Strategy 80 and 60. For the year so far, from the 6th of October, I'm heavily behind everything, and from 2017 I'm even more heavily behind everything. So that's the disclaimer. I'm a terrible investor, don't do what I do. Having said that, let's see where that performance came from in the week. Nothing really stands out, I guess. The eagle-eyed among you will see a spoiler for the rest of the video. And the eagle-eyed among you here will also see a spoiler for the rest of the video. Any outliers here? Not particularly, just the normal random noise, to be honest. Costco hasn't done too great, has it? Neither's L'Oreal. Anyway, yeah, there's the performance where it's come from in the week. So, what have I been up to? Well, the first thing you'll notice, I'll insert the video of that happening right now. All right, I'm pondering a move this morning. I'm being enticed by this Scottish American 11.4% discount. We've got Brunner here that is slightly on a premium to NAV, 1%. And we've also got F&C Investment that's about 9% discount. And looking at the accounts that the 3 holdings I have in Brunner are in, I'm thinking maybe in my ISA, maybe I'll put the ISA amount into Scottish American and the other 2 into F&C, because F&C would be a new holding. Scottish American would be topping up one of my biggest holdings to be even bigger. It would end up being the biggest by far. And I've just totted up the numbers here in this little formula, and I estimate that would leave me about the same on my dividends. I don't want to increase my dividends by much, because I feel like I'm doing that too much at the moment. But I just feel like these are pretty similar trusts. I like the private equity exposure FCIT gives me, because that's at a bit of a bad moment in time at the moment. So it might be buying low on the private equity stuff that F&C has. So yeah, I'm thinking about switching that. And then maybe at some point, if the discounts kind of equalise, maybe I'll just reverse it completely back into Brunner. I do really like Brunner though, so I'm a little bit torn. Anyway, that's what I'm thinking about. I'll let you know later if I actually do it. All right, so this morning I did actually go ahead with the move. I've just finished updating all the spreadsheets. So as you can see there's the F&C Investment Trust that's taken the place of Brunner in this little, like, what would I call it, master spreadsheet, I guess. And then obviously now the Scottish American holding is about 4 well, almost 5 grand higher now. It's up to 38%, up to 10% of the portfolio, which is quite a high weighting. So yeah, as I said, I'm going to be looking for the moment when those sort of discounts of those three are kind of similar, and I might possibly just completely reverse this move at some point. Because I do prefer Brunner. On balance, I would prefer to own Brunner, but that 11% and 9% discount for the other two, it's like looking a gift horse in the mouth, really. And just to illustrate the point, we can see here that over the past year, for the share prices, Brunner has done better than the other two, up 22%, whereas Scottish American is down 3.49%, and F&C is up 18.61%. So Brunner's the best of the three, but if we look at the NAV changes, Brunner is only actually up 9.93% on the NAV. That's the underlying holdings that have done that well, compared to F&C's 22.49. So I've kind of got into the best performing one, whilst I don't know. Well, the best performing underlying portfolio is what I've got into. Yet the share price that I received when I sold has done better than it. It's basically it's the discounts. The discount for F&C has increased, and the discount from Brunner has just disappeared completely. That used to be there. And a similar story with Scottish American. The NAV is up 6.53% over the year, but the share price is down 3.49%. That's total returns. That includes dividends, by the way. These AIC charts always include dividends. So yeah, when I did it, I ended up with £2.54 left over in cash, because you can only buy whole shares. I've worked out that this move in aggregate has added £1.46 a year to the dividend. That's kind of how I was planning it. I was trying to make it flat. Well, I didn't want it to reduce the dividend, but I was trying to make it flat, and I've estimated quite well there. And it worked out nicely that was exactly the amount that was in the SIP. So there was no extra transactions going on. I could just use the full amount in the SIP. Sorry, no, it was the ISA, wasn't it? So here's the two F&C holdings in my spreadsheet. And then the Scottish American license. Right, so it was the ISA. Yeah, the Scottish American went in the ISA. Yeah, so the other thing, what I might do also is change this, because I've now got a pretty hefty holding in FCIT. So this one here, where I'm looking to sell some Murray International and to sell my three kind of sector picks there, that is estimating the dividend differential by selling, like, I think it's 5 grand, is it? Oh no, it's a certain number of shares. I've got it there as a certain number of Murray International shares that I'm selling, along with all these, and putting it all into FCIT, because FCIT is just kind of on the borderline of being like a quote-unquote growthy one that would go in here. And what that move would do is it would kind of blow up the whole idea of me segregating my portfolio, to be honest. I'm starting to think that I'm never going to sell capital. I'm just not built that way. So I'm starting to think that perhaps me tracking the growth section separately from the dividendy section is a bit pointless. So if I did do this move, that would kind of blow up this whole concept of having a segregated portfolio. Yeah, so now that I've got a holding in FCIT, it might make sense to change this thing that I'm monitoring here, change that to be monitoring Brunner being swapped. In fact, let's do that now, shall we? I can just change this one here to Brunner, because Brunner is now the one I don't own. That's right, isn't it? Yeah, 1.65. So now that should automatically update this number. So now that swap is already almost level on the dividend. If that ever did happen, if I ever did make that swap, that would stop that from being an option. Reversing the move I just made would not be an option anymore, because I would already have a decent holding in BUT. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I guess if either of these gets triggered, or if I feel like making either of those changes, then the other one just is taken off the table. So it depends which one comes first, doesn't it? Because I'd be wanting to see a pretty good comeback for these three, like I've mentioned before. So yeah, this whole concept, the whole concept of that move is pretty far out in the future anyway. So it's probably not likely. So it's probably worth monitoring this change. And then if I do make that reverse back to what I did this morning, back to how I had it this morning, then this would just become the foreign and colonial swap again, as it was before. Okay, so that was from earlier in the week. You'll notice there, I had changed that swap to Brunner, but that was kind of a bit, that was sending the portfolio less growthy, wasn't it? So what I've done here is I've modified the swap, and I've made the swap, kind of the tracking of the swap, I've made it reverse, putting some money into Scottish American, because Scottish American is less growthy than Brunner and more dividend focused. So I've reversed the Scottish American. I've also done the same selling of Murray International there, and I've made the swap equalise the F&C Trust with Brunner. So it's putting some money into Brunner, some money into F&C, and into Brunner, and it's also selling some extra Scottish American and Murray International. So what that's done is, I think that's more of a balanced change. So it keeps me just as growthy. I mean, when I say growthy, I'm just talking about the dividend yield, to be honest. It stops it from being such a growth to dividend/value swap. And obviously by doing that, we now have a current forecast for the swap being a -68 rather than, I think it was roughly flat, wasn't it? I'll have to check the video. It wasn't far off flat anyway. So yeah, this is the kind of swap I'm monitoring now. I mean, there's that going to zero isn't what's going to trigger my sale. As I said, it's really more about just letting these three recover for a while. And as I've said in other videos, I'm also monitoring just swapping those three sector ones for the American fund. So, you know, there's always a few options going on in my mind. You know, nothing's set in stone. I've just got a few options I'm monitoring. Okay, so maybe a few words on F&C Investment Trust. It is it's one of those multi-manager ones. So if we go to the fact sheet here, although this guy is the fund manager, he kind of outsources stuff to other people in different sectors, I think. So I think kind of the result of that is that the trust is quite diversified. Even like the top holdings, the maximum one is 4.1% in Nvidia, which is a little bit of a worry for me. You know, it feels like we could be buying a high there on Nvidia. And then below that is like 2.7%, whereas the likes of Brunner is quite a bit higher in their top holdings. It's also got a lot of, well, actually I'm not exactly sure how much, but it's got private equity in there as well, which could be good or bad. One of the things I do like, it's quite a big trust. It's 6.3 billion in assets, which is probably why we've got quite a low management fee compared to Brunner. I think Brunner's is 0.45, I think. Let's check. I was in here a few minutes ago and I've forgotten already. Yeah, 0.45 for Brunner compared to a maximum of 0.3. So I don't know what the blended average is. So yeah, and then like the total ongoing charge is 0.49 compared to 0.64 for Brunner. So it's good on the charges. If we look at the 10-year performance here and compare it to Brunner, it's not done as well as Brunner. But as I said, it's we can see there that it's only the share price of Brunner that runs away with it at the end. The NAV of F&C has actually done quite a bit better than Brunner, so a bit strange. So here I was talking about it being diversified, so that's reflected in the number of holdings. If I remember correctly, there's over like 200 holdings, way more than 200. I mean, almost 400 holdings. It's ridiculous. So some of these must be like a minuscule percentage of the portfolio. But yeah, as you can see, these are there's an example of one of the private equity trusts. So I guess there's like different rounds with private equity. I don't know exactly how it works, but I think there's like different offerings, and I bet if you added up all of these Pantheon ones, it'll be a decent percentage of the portfolio rather than this, which is just a tiny percentage of this number down here. The way they hold private equity is kind of a counterbalance to that the low charges I just mentioned as well, because obviously we'll be paying that 0.3% or lower slightly on this amount as well, and we'll be paying probably like 1 or 2%, I don't know, high charges I would imagine, for the private equity fund itself. So there is double charging there on these things. But to me, you know, the 0.3% maximum is so low that I decided to get over that. So this really is one that is like the core of the portfolio. I wouldn't expect this to like do massively well, but hopefully it wouldn't do massively badly either. I would imagine, being so diversified, or you could say it's diversification, couldn't you? So who knows? This could be bad. It could be good. Oh, and as we can see here, it's got a pretty good dividend increase record. Yes, a bit better than Brunner actually, which you would expect because it's got a starting yield that's quite a bit lower. Even in these COVID years, it's done quite a hefty rise in the dividend there, hasn't it? I wonder what the cover was like in those years. So it was really just by choice. It's not like the underlying portfolio did particularly better. They just allowed the dividend cover to go quite low there, didn't they? So yeah, they just decided not to be prudent, didn't they? And they kept rising by quite a high percentage there in the COVID years, 20 and 21. Whereas Brunner went as small as possible with keeping the record of rises. But they've got the cover back. They're covered by 8% there last year. From 2005 to 23, it's up 209% compared to Brunner's 158%. If we put the same as last year in for that, so this year's rise is going to be at least 4.08%. So that's assuming that the last one that's not been declared is the same as last year. But normally, normally it goes up. Yeah, so that's that. Okay, and then the other transaction I made was yesterday on Friday. We can see here 3 days ago, Joseph Carlson released his video saying that he'd bought some ASML. He'd been talking about it a few times over the past little while, so I was kind of monitoring it and I was kind of half waiting for him to buy it, and then I was going to follow in, and that's exactly what I've done. I just made it a small holding, so what I've done is I waited for the 2nd of January to see what Fundsmith did. I was kind of hoping that Fundsmith sold out of a holding so that I could make the transaction quite easy, but he didn't. He hasn't sold anything in December fully. So what I did was here's the individual transaction. Sold some Microsoft. Basically, it was moves that was correcting the top 10 order of Fundsmith, and basically there was a few little moves that I needed to make to match his order. And so basically I've done that. I've sold a load of Microsoft. The other part of me was thinking, it's sod's law, isn't it? If I sell some Microsoft is going to go shooting up. And if I don't sell it, Microsoft is going to go down. So I was thinking to myself, let's just reduce my Microsoft and then hopefully it'll do well because I've sold some. So now in my top 10, I've got Meta as my top holding. So yeah, and then just a couple of other tiny little changes that kind of corrects the order, and then I bought £389 worth of ASML, which puts it at the bottom of the list. He's made a small, for him anyway, it's a small holding, and he's looking for further falls in the share price to top up the holding. So I've done the usual thing. There is actually, that's the real holding there in euros. I think it's, the Netherlands. But I've done what I did with Novo Nordisk. I've bought the US ADR, isn't it? That's what it is. I've bought the NASDAQ one so that when I trade in it, it's the US market time that matters. But yeah, one of the reason he's chosen now to get into it is because it's had quite a bit of a pullback from its all-time highs, 34% down. It kind of went up along with Nvidia, but it's come back quite a lot. They've announced some reductions in orders and stuff. So it doesn't seem like, it's not like we're buying on a high, but it's also, longer term, it is quite a bit of a high if you look at that chart. But it's come back 34%. So, I wouldn't be, as Joseph said, wouldn't be surprised if it goes down a bit further, and I'll probably top it up to be a bigger holding if that does happen. it's only 1.46% at the moment. All right, we're almost at 20 minutes, so I'll leave it there, I think. I've decided to stop putting in the pictures. I found in recent weeks that it was taking me a bit too long to make these videos, so I'm going to reduce the workload. Like as you can see here, it's 20 past 1 in the afternoon. I quite like to get them done by like 2, 3 in the afternoon, and I was going to like 5 p.m, 6 p.m. the past few weeks, and I think quite a bit of that is adding the pictures and thinking about which pictures to put in. So I'll forget that because it's off topic anyway, isn't it? This is an investing channel, not a pictures of someone on holiday channel. So I'll see you next week then. Bye.